Every economy has a rhythm, every life has a season, and God doesn't hide the pattern, He reveals it to those who walk with Him. Today, we decode Noah's story as a spiritual financial map to teach you how to recognize the dry season, the flood season, and the elevation season, and finally the rest season. Welcome to Money Matters Show. Today we are in episode 8, and today we are going to understand economic seasons through Noah's story. Keep it here, grab that cup of chai, get a pen, get a book, because it's about to get down. In Genesis chapter 6, 13 to 14, God tells Noah about the coming destruction and commands him to build the ark. This is the revelation season. The Lord gives you revelation in our dry season, a season where there is no rain, a season where there is no crisis, a season where the business is as usual. God speaks not to everyone, but to a prepared ear. He gives a warning, not of fear, but of strategy. In dry seasons and revelation seasons, when the world is comfortable, God reveals investment strategies to His people to prepare them for coming shift. Don't be left out. Have that relationship with God, like Noah did, to get the strategy from God on your next coming season. Don't be blinded by ease. Tune in to God's forecast, like Noah. After the revelation season, we see Noah getting into another season. Which season is this? It is the building in preparedness season, all right? And where do we get it from? We get it from Genesis chapter 6, verse 22. Allow me to read it for you, and this is what it says. Noah did everything. In Genesis chapter 6, 22, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. Noah started building, not for today, but for a season ahead. He used today's time, tools, and obedience to prepare for what others couldn't see. You can imagine when he started building, people were mocking at him. Some people were laughing. Some people couldn't believe him. But for him, it was obedience. All right? Another thing that I want you to see, that a time when you start to prepare, a season of preparation can feel boring, can feel long and silent, but they are the birthplace of generational wealth. God won't send the flood until your ark is ready. Use this season to learn, to save, to sow, and even to prepare. Above all, obey. Now, after the revelation season that happened during the dry season, also after the building in preparation season that still happened in the dry season, we get into another season. And which season is this? This season is the flood economic disruption season. Let's see it in Genesis chapter 7, verse 11. The floodgates of heavens were opened, okay? And the floods did what? And the floods came, all right? This is to tell you that the season of dryness immediately changed, all right? The floods came. And this is to tell you, because we are looking at the economic season. An economic season can change all of a sudden from normalcy, maybe to inflation or recession, okay? All right? This is also to tell you that the market crashed and the panic spread. And the only thing that stood was Noah's ark. Imagine now the Lord has given you an investment plan. And that investment plan, He told you to start building it during the dry season, all right? And now, as a believer, you obeyed and you build. And now the flood season, the inflation season, the recession season has come, okay? So as a believer, it's always good to know that economic disruption always happens. But God's people rise above it if they have built with His instruction. So it's always good as a believer to know that it's always better to build with God's instruction. Go back to the secret place. Ask God for that instruction. Ask God, what season am I in? Because as a believer, you ought to understand the season you are in. Our season, or my season, is quite different from your season, all right? Another thing that I want you to know is that the flood is not a punishment. Recession or inflation is not a punishment, all right? It is a filter. It is a filter. You know, most of the businesses that people build is, they don't stand storms like inflation, like floodings, okay? And that's why when the floods came, they don't stand. We call it a filter. It is also comes to separate the wise from the unpreparedness. Now, after the flood season, we get into another season, which is called the floating season, meaning sustaining in uncertain times. And where do we get it from? We get it from Genesis chapter 7 verse 17, and this is what it says: the waters increased and lifted the ark high above the earth. Okay, this is to tell you that as a believer, in chaos, the ark didn't sink, all right? It rose up higher, and Noah wasn't just surviving, all right? He was being lifted. His faith funded project sustained him in Christ. This is to tell you that God's instructions don't just protect, they promote, all right? In the worst seasons, God's people can float. When you have built with God, when you have tarried in the secret place, and the Lord has given you the idea, which is the ark, okay? If your obedience carried you in peace, it will also carry you in pressure. Now, after the floating season, which we said it is the sustaining era, we get into another season. Which one? The resting season. And we are going to get it from Genesis chapter 8, Genesis chapter 8, verse 4. And this is what it says. Part B. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. What do we see here? Now, after the flood, Noah didn't return to the old world, okay? He entered a new one, and he rested on Mount Ararat, okay? His obedience didn't just save him, it positioned him as a leader in a cleansed economy. Now, after the era of flooding and floating, now a new economy has begun. So as a believer who has already invested and you have already built your ark during that dry season, now after all the economic tumult, inflation and recession, your business now stands out and begins in a cleansed world. Also, this is to tell you that the purpose of surviving a hard season is to lead in the next one. Oh God, I don't know if you got that. Let me repeat it again. The purpose of surviving a hard season is to lead in a new season. Noah survived the hard season, meaning he came to lead in the new season, all right? So what can I tell you as a believer? Don't just build to escape, build to reign, all right? You are not meant to come out empty. You are meant to replant, rebuild, and release wealth. What are the key takeaways for today's episode 8 on understanding God's economic season through Noah's story? So the first one we discussed is the revelation season. During the dry season, it is during that time the Lord has given us revelation. So I would ask you, what is that the Lord has revealed to you and you are yet to actualize it? The second season is the preparation season. What are you waiting for? Have you started building, even if there's no reward? Okay, what are you waiting for? Now, whatever the Lord has told you to invest in, like Noah, can it stand the flood season? Can it stand during the crisis? Can it stand during the recession and inflation period? The fourth season that we are seeing in Noah's story, it is the floating season. We said it is the sustaining period. Now, allow me to ask you as a believer that whatever you have built, that business, that investment plan, that whatever it is that you have built, can it stand or will it sink? Will it float or will it sink? Okay, because Noah wasn't sinking, all right, and he wasn't even surviving, but during that time it was lifted up. Whatever you have built during the crisis, maybe the inflation and recession, can it be lifted up? Ask yourself that. And finally, we are seeing the resting season, whereby Noah's ark rested on Mount Ararat. This is to ask you, are you ready to lead in a new season after resting at Mount Ararat and the floods have already gone away? Beloved, we have reached the end of episode 8. What I want you to know is that Noah didn't just survive. He got the understanding of times and seasons through the help of God. I would love to ask you, where do you get your next season from? Where do you get what you do next from? Because when you walk with God, He reveals and He gives you the instruction. If you read Deuteronomy 29:29, the Bible says that whatever He reveals to us, it is for us and unto our children. Now, this is to encourage you as a believer. Desire to walk in God's calendar so that you don't miss your next season. May you receive insight to build in the dry season, what we said, the revelation season, courage in the building season, peace in the flooding season, and elevation in the resting season. Thank you for watching and tuning in. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, and to share to your loved ones. Remember, I have been your host, Moegi Komboka, and this is Money Matters Show. Bye bye.